Hey, hustle bro, you know, everybody says growing this agency thing is easy, but maybe it's just me, maybe it's my niche. Niche? The right niche is cold DMing motherfuckers! Bitch. Does that work? No, it doesn't work, but I got a fucking course anyway! Honestly, I want to be rich, but I still feel so far away from it all. Then you just keep DMing until you got a fucking Lambo, a 2 Comma Club award, and when you got Gary V quotes in a rap song. What's up guys, it's Frankie here. This video is actually about me. For those of you guys who've been asking, tell you a little bit about my story, my kind of journey through this agency world, and tell you there's been lots of ups and downs, but it has been one of the most worthwhile things I've ever done in my life. There's something magical about high ticket recurring income that operates where you can do it anywhere in the world, anywhere you got a laptop, and build this business and be able to travel the world and cool stuff. There's been many hardships along the way, and so I want to share with you guys a little bit about my journey so you understand where I'm coming from in this. For those of you guys who don't know me already, my name's Frankie Fihn. I wrote these 2 best-selling books. This one right here, Beyond the Agency Box, you can find a link for below this video. I've built 3 of my own agencies up to 100 plus clients, and I've helped thousands of you guys out there to live this more beach, less laptop lifestyle. Let's get into the good shit.
Yo, it's Frankie Fihn. Beach mode engaged. Looms loaded, AI's humming. Let's go!
All right. So my agency journey, by the way, my sort of internet journey is probably more accurate to say, began in late 2006. I had a friend of mine. We were both really interested in real estate stuff. And one day he proceeds to call me up on the phone. His name is Matt. And Matt says to me, "Hey, Frankie, I wrote a real estate course and we are going to sell it on the internet." And I kind of laughed at him. It's like, we? It's like, you're going to sell your own fucking course. And he said, you know, I'm not really good with computers and you'll be able to figure it out and I can't. And he hung up the phone on me. He said, think about it. And I thought about it for like 2-3 days and I didn't have anything better going on and I couldn't find any jobs. In fact, the only jobs I could find were like commission only sales jobs. There was a financial crisis in 2008. Some of you guys remember living through it, but my local area, it really started probably like a year and a half, 2 years earlier, where everybody I know works for Ford, General Motors, Chrysler, or a supplier. And those companies were sometimes laying off like 10,000 workers in a day. In a city of 200,000, when like 10, 20% of the workforce gets fired, it was really, really hard. And so the only jobs I could find were commission only. And then I said, you know, if I have to sell something, I might as well sell my own thing. And so we began this journey of selling Matt's real estate courses on the internet. And by the way, I think the only thing that I was qualified for back in those days was 24 years old or so, 23 or something like that, was masturbation. In fact, if masturbation was an Olympic sport, I would be on the Wheaties box looking like this.
Frankie, we just want to know, how did you do it?
Yep. Whether it was endurance or speed or consecutive attempts, I was going to win that race. So by the way, just so you guys know, I didn't make any money for probably about 20 months. $0. So for those of you guys, by the way, I've met a few of you guys out there. You said, I haven't made any money yet on this whole internet business. I didn't either, just so you know. And by the way, in this stage, just so you guys know, you often have a lot of what I call anti-cheerleaders. And I've learned in hindsight, they mean well. They're usually like friends and family that say stuff like, why don't you get a real job? And they'll remind you how much money you made, how much money you made, how much money you made. And you got to point to the scoreboard and go 0. And by the way, there is a time later, it's usually years later, where you actually get to do stuff. Like for me, it meant like I could just travel the world. I could just like, it would be Tuesday and it'd say, hey, you want to book a flight on Thursday and just go to Europe for a month? And my ex would be like, all right, let's fucking go. And then people would be like, how can you guys just afford to just drop everything and go to Europe? And I remember one of my anti-cheerleaders used to always call it that little internet thing. And I would just wink at him and say, well, I guess that little internet thing is working out. So there is a point later in time where you get to flex, which for me kind of looked like this.
The only way to bag a classy lady is to give her 2 tickets to the gun show. And see if she likes the goods.
2 tickets to the gun show. So I remember one of Matt's courses. It was about cash flowing rental properties. And we sold it for $47. And I still remember the first day I opened my email and there was a PayPal notification. And it was from a dude who had sent us $47. And all of a sudden, I remember calling up Matt and I said, Matt, you're never going to fucking believe this. And he went, what? And I said, somebody just gave us $47. And he said, who? And I said, that's the best part. I don't know who. And so he actually called me up and he drove over to my house and we sat there and we spent an hour trying to research the person, like who just gave us money. We couldn't figure it out because the person had a really generic name, a Dave Smith or a Joe Johnson or something like that. And so we just never were able to track down the person. We spent an hour looking for it. But I'll tell you, at some point, the doubt started to creep in. You start to think, like, maybe they're just one idiot. And, it wasn't until I actually, all of a sudden, it was probably about 2 weeks later, all of a sudden, we had a second course and somebody gave us $97. And all of a sudden, I was like, holy shit, it's real. Now, mind you, this was after 20 months of making zero and making many, 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 many mistakes along the way. And part of how we were selling these courses is I had self-taught myself something called SEO. I figured out how to rank our course website in the Google. And I got a call from a guy named Rick. And Rick said to me, he said, I got a plastic surgeon client who's trying to rank his website in Google. And I saw you did this for your thing. Do you think you could help me? Now, this was, believe it or not, in like late 07 when I was doing this, you actually could not easily find SEO people. In fact, people would say, do you know anybody who does SEO? And a lot of times people would say, no, I don't. And so Rick was looking for somebody like me because unbeknownst to me, he sold like 400 websites a year. He went to all the plastic surgery conferences. A lot of those people were saying, hey, now that you built me a site, can you help me rank it in Google? And he didn't really have a solution for that. So he was looking for what's today known as a white label partner. And so that was the beginning of my agency called Modern Workers. Not really the most clever name, but I don't know. The domain was available, so that's what I called it. I was just looking for something that was 2words.com that I could get. And so modernworkers.com was our site back in the day. And we sold SEO. And honestly, I didn't do a very good job in selling it. In fact, I ended up getting another partner as well. I forget her name, but Rick and the other partner, they sold all the websites for me. And we got to about 150 clients at our peak. And it was total fucking chaos. Like everything about how I ran that agency was madness. Like I'm talking Macho Man Randy Savage. Ooh, yeah, the madness. Like that level of madness, right? But we did it. I made pretty much every mistake you could make in the book. But we also did really, really well. And I made this kind of money.
$1 million.
So I'll tell you, like, we didn't really start hitting big numbers, I would say, or at least what I considered to be big numbers until about 4 years. So a lot of times people think like they see the result after 4 years, but 4 years, just so you know, is 1,400 days, right? So like I worked at this for 1,400 days in a row before I really had some like real level of success. And I did that agency probably for about 9 years, I want to say. And there was a period of my life I started getting into psychedelics. I drank some ayahuasca and I was going through some stuff. And what I was going through is this business was financially successful, but I hated everything about it. And it was all consuming of my day. I never had any time to enjoy anything. I never got to really go and do a lot of things. Like occasionally I would, go to Europe, but I was still working when I got to fucking Europe and shit like that, right? Like I just had a different fucking place I was looking at the screen. And I had no real freedom in that business and it was pure chaos. And so when I remember drinking ayahuasca, and I remember like one of the clear thoughts I had is, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want my tombstone just to say he was good at building backlinks for people. And so I decided just to stop doing it. And I took probably, I don't remember the exact timeline, but a 3 to 6 month hiatus. And when I thought about it, I was like, I actually do want to do this agency stuff. And I had become obsessed with the question, how do I sell SEO? And the reason I was obsessed about the question is because I was dependent on partners to sell it to me. And I didn't really like my partners. Like Rick was like a mean drunk. We would go to the conference and he'd start drinking and he'd just always be fucking mad about something. And I was like, I want to get my own clients, A, because I can charge more money, and B, because I don't want to deal with people like that. I want to be able to pick and choose my own clients. And it took me almost 10 years, by the way, to figure out how to sell my own stuff. Ironically, I was good at getting other people business, but not at getting myself. 2015, I restarted an agency that I called Lawyer Clients. And we had and again, I picked it because there was a domain, lawyerclients.com was available. And actually, by the way, I was listening to Dan Kennedy, trying to figure out how to sell stuff. Dan Kennedy, the evil genius, who's kind of like this. Good old Hank Scorpio and his evil laugh. Need some evil laugh. So Dan Kennedy was saying something that I thought was really funny. He said, can you believe it? There are lawyers who can't make money. Honest to God, lawyers. And they have a license to steal money from the general public. And I thought that was so funny. I was like, I want a license to steal money from the general public. Not a good reason to pick a niche, but nonetheless, it was my reason. And I remember actually I went to LinkedIn and I changed my profile to say lawyer marketing expert. And it was very funny to me because at that point in my life, I didn't have a friend who went to law school. I'd never hired a lawyer. I didn't know any lawyers. The total number of lawyers I knew was 0. And so it took me an hour to update my LinkedIn profile because I felt like such an imposter changing it. And then if you click edit and then don't save the changes for an hour, by the time I actually clicked submit and got the courage to do it, it said it's timed out and you need to do it again. So I actually had to do it twice. I remember feeling like an imposter twice to actually get it done. But that was born. And it took me probably about 6 months to get it off the ground. So obviously the second time, it was better and faster. And I'll tell you the biggest upgrade between my first and my second agency. This was my chaos agency. This was a much better agency. And the reason it was really, really simple is we did less stuff. So in this agency, I predominantly did SEO for plastic surgeons. But the truth was, if anybody came through with a credit card, they said, hey, do you guys know how to make videos? Do you guys know how to make websites? Do you guys know how to make pay-per-click ads? You ever made a landing page? You ever made a funnel? It didn't matter what they asked for. If I thought we could do it, I said yes. And so, and also the way I ran my team and my staff, there were no systems, there were no processes. It was a big mess. But in my second agency, it wasn't until we got to 15, 20 clients, I'll say 20, that I really noticed how much smarter it was and the importance of really niching down, because we were running Facebook ads for personal injury attorneys. And what I figured out when we were running Facebook ads is once I figured out an ad that worked for one client, I gave the same ad to all other 20 or all other 19, I guess. And I was like, So sometimes I would only have one thing to do in a day. I would have to come up with one winning ad and figure out how to deploy it for everybody. And the amount of moving pieces was smaller, and yet the clients were happier because it was working, right? Over here, they're it was the SEO was never fast enough, never cheap enough. Over here, it was they could see an almost instantaneous result, and I could deploy that result to everybody. And I might have to change some brand colors and a different phone number and change a lawyer picture, but for the most part, I could train my team to do that, and so I could often in a matter of a few hours, make a change that affected everybody and got positive, beneficial results. And so I did that for, I want to say 6, 7 years. I still have legacy lawyer clients who've been with me. I haven't sold a new lawyer in the last 4 to 5 years. I'm not trying to grow that agency, but I do have some of them. And actually my oldest client has been with me for about 20 years. So they joined, actually no, that's not true. They joined late 2009. So I don't know, 16 years, I guess, at the time of recording this. But my oldest client has been with me 16 years. And by the way, it makes life a lot easier when you got somebody paying you for 16 years. So that's kind of what I did for the first part. Now, the third stage of this is what I call the partnership side. Let me just kind of delete this, or remove some of this. But this is the part of the agency that I call the beyond the box point of it. And I'll tell you, kind of one of the things that I realized through the journey is that what you really are after if you want to become wealthy is not the cash flow from the clients, it's the ownership of the results. And most agencies are afraid of this, and it's actually the best part. So let's call it 2021 and beyond. I have an agency that really doesn't fit a box. It doesn't have a name. You can't go to a website and hire us. But nonetheless, we still have paying clients and things like that. And what I figured out is the partnership / equity phase. And by the way, you can go straight to this phase, but you have to know how to choose partners. And I'll tell you, the first time I realized the importance of equity and partnership is the very first SEO client was a plastic surgeon in Dallas. His name was Sam. And Sam came to us and through Rick. And I agreed to $400 a month. Why? That just sounded like a psychologically satisfying number to me at the time. And what I ended up doing is I ended up ranking him, and you know, I was selling a little bit of my own real estate courses and stuff, but I had no idea how much like #1 rankings could blow up a business. And one day Sam asked me, he said, could you call me? Now I'm about 3 to 4 months into my SEO agency, and all of the phone call requests have been, can you explain these monthly reports to me and tell me what this means in English? This looks like hieroglyphs to me. So I got a call with Sam, and he says to me, hey Frankie, been looking forward to talking with you. And I said, hey Sam, I know you probably just got some questions about the reports. I know you're busy, so like, you know, I apologize for taking up your time. And he started laughing at me, which was kind of an unusual response. And he said, are you kidding me? He said, you're apologizing for time you're taking up? He said, you don't know this, but you're more important than my office manager. I have no idea what you're doing, but people keep calling us all day long and they said, we found you from the Google. We found you from the Google. We've probably, since the 4 months you've started, we've probably added $3 million in procedures, and it keeps coming in every day. Whatever you're doing, please, for the love of God, keep doing it. And I looked and I was like, $400 a month, and I made this guy $3 million. Huh. Right? $400 a month, because I'm a math guy. I went to school for engineering. That's $4,800 for the year. I was charging this guy $4,800 to make $3 million. And don't get me wrong, like I was happy to be making the $400, but when I look back on it, I was like, man, what would have happened if I just said it's $400 per month plus 10% of sales? Or if you really know how to pick a partner, like it's not even $400 a month, it's just 10% of sales. That would have been a $300,000 contract to me. And that would have still been just as easy of a yes. But I'll tell you why I didn't. I didn't know you could even do these things. And so when you know how to ask for equity, you actually end up making far more off of equity. Now, I'll tell you the biggest reason why you should not do partnerships is if you don't know what makes a good client. And what makes for a good client in the partnership phase is the top 1 to 5% of every industry. So like a lot of times when people pitch partnerships, it's broke, struggling businesses that say, hey, we should do a partnership or an equity share, or, you know, you bring me clients and then I'll pay you. That's a terrible idea because they often have broken sales processes, broken system, broken teams. Their offers aren't that good. Their company's not that good. They don't have great reviews. You want somebody who was winning long before you showed up. And often you can just like, so right now we're actually launching an offer for a partner where we're just sending out a referral campaign. Now they're already crushing it without us, but when we send out like this stuff by mail, we expect some of those to return with referrals. And it's like, hey, we just added this revenue and you don't have to do anything for it. Send us a check. So that's what we do now. Now, part of the downside of the partnership is you can get burned, by the way. So you have to know how to pick the partners, and you have to know how to test them, and you have to know how to control the assets to make it so it's not that easy for them to screw you. And I really wish I knew this stuff earlier. I haven't heard this in a lot of places other than, for example, in our agency owners mastermind called the Wolf Pack, which is kind of like this.
Round 1, fight!
Shoryuken! So we still have clients, but I'll tell you, one of the things that's changed in the partnership phase is a lot of you guys know me as the Loom Close guy, that we figured out how to close stuff in video. I also do it just as much with Google Docs. But the magic of this is I can put these inside of partners' businesses. They take me, 20 minutes to set up, and I can create sales flows that create revenue for me. And the magic of it is there is no fulfillment because they're just paying me for a result, which is sales, which is being driven by what I would call a digital asset, which means my income to leverage or my income to energy is almost infinite. Like most people think about the money side of it, but they don't think about the trade for how much energy you're investing to get for it. So when sales are being created with automated tools, the money is awesome, but the energy is almost zero, right? And so how many of these partnerships can you do if you're selling stuff for people that doesn't require you to fulfill on anything? And so there was a period of time where my biggest struggle was every time a client said yes, we got an SEO client, there was a lot of shit to do. And now we're in a phase where when clients say yes, I stick a little 5-minute thing into their flow and we create sales. In fact, I was just thinking yesterday, I got sent some royalty checks, and it wasn't even for a loom, it was for an introduction I made. That was like, it literally took me like less than 30 seconds to make the intro, and I'm getting recurring income from it that is comparable to all the work you have to do for a client and managing them and expectations and updates and phone calls. And so when you realize that, when you realize how to make those work, partnerships are way cooler. Now, it's not without risk. So I wouldn't recommend doing this with everybody, but once you know how to pick like partners, and part of the reason I've figured out how to pick partners is if you just do retainer long enough, you eventually figure out like who wins in the retainer model. But once you get into the partnership phase, you end up making 10 to 20 times per client what you would make as a retainer. So if you're making $1,500 as a client, it's not unusual to make 15 to 30,000 a month with a partnership client if you know how to pick them. My favorite part is there's actually less to do, right? Like never mind the 10 times the money is like, you don't sign yourself up for all this misery and stuff. So if you guys are interested in hearing more about how to kind of structure those partnerships, I'm down to do more of those. We also have a sister channel called Passive Automated Recurring Income, where we go deeper into what I call deal making, which is partnerships, deal making, things like that. But if you guys are interested, check that out. But in the meantime, I want to just kind of give you guys my story so you understand how I got here. And as I mentioned, our first agency, we probably got to about 150 clients. Our second one, we kind of maxed out probably around 100. And now I'm in the partnership phase. In many ways, the amount of partners I keep is usually less than 5 at any given time. And yet we make, through the sales and stuff for them, like the actual clients and stuff we have are in the tens of thousands. But again, I don't have any fulfillment on that, so I don't worry about how many clients we get. I just keep making cool stuff that brings them clients and results, and they're happy with it. And they you know, to them, I'm just a commissioned salesperson who knows how to sell their stuff. So that's all I got for you guys in this video. If you're not already subscribed, make sure to subscribe. For the golden guns, the corny dad jokes, for the greatest of all time, 170 pounds of pure steel and sex appeal, me, and may the Triforce be with you. Buy my book, or I will make it so your favorite website redirects to midget porn.